We often hear about Australia's escalating suicide rates, but the clusters of deaths of young people, particularly in remote towns, has reached alarming levels. This is the story of one of those towns in Western Australia, and a local undertaker who has buried far too many young men who have died at their own hands, including his own son. ABC Open producer Nathan Morris reports.
I picked my son up today. We left Cal for the trek back home to Leonora. As we left the busy streets, I could feel his anger and confusion. The kilometres ticked by, passing shift workers on their way home to their families.
It's been a busy time for Matt Taylor. There's been a cluster of deaths of young Aboriginal people. And as the local undertaker, he's far too familiar with death. But today is different. This time, it's personal.
Having to bury my own son today, if I compartmentalise it into the role as an undertaker, I'm somewhat desensitised to that. That happens. But as a father, it's not a...
For a town with a population of 700 residents, Leonora has an above-average rate of Indigenous suicide. Matt Taylor's son is the sixth person to take his life in the last 18 months.
We dressed our boy today, his favourite suit that we had bought for him, along with some fine leather shoes for when he was assisting us on funeral services. I remembered to polish his shoes just the way he would, only to have them covered in red dust 5 minutes later. They would remain bright and shiny this time. I knotted his tie, just as every other time. He never did get the knack of his own tie. I zipped up the bag and I closed the morgue door. I couldn't bring myself to turn the light off. I sat at home as a father, my other role complete, the racking convulsions of grief wrapping their arms around me. It's almost being normalised that grief and tragedy is acceptable. We have circumstances, yes, where there are accidents, there are natural causes of death. That's normal, that's acceptable, and we will deal with that on a daily basis. But is the tragedies such as suicide, death before age is due, or non-natural circumstances that bring the most grief to people and that people don't understand. I chided myself. Matthew, you are broken, but it is not time. It is not time to let the pieces fall. That time will come. That time will come.
As the final shovels of dirt fill this new grave, Brendan Anderson looks on, standing just metres from where his own son is buried. While that death was not a suicide, the topic is not far from the young father's mind.
Alcohol plays a big role. Alcohol's the one that pushing them to do it. Because if they were sober, they wouldn't do it, you know? They'd be doing something else. And if we had more things here for them to do, maybe they wouldn't be drinking as much as they are. So we've got nothing in Leonora at the moment for them. Sometimes I thought I might go out and get drunk and go and hang myself or something, just to get away from this. I can't handle taking no more. And I just stopped. My boys and my daughter was in my ears. They always was there for me. Then I had my oldest brother always explain it to me, you know. You're right, my brother. We're here when we need, when When you need it, we're here.
Buttoning his jacket, my mind goes back to helping him dress for the early years of school. He looked just as sharp as the last time he stood in front of me, waiting for my nod of approval. My daughters came to visit their brother, thankful for his air of peace. They left with a final goodbye, tears streaming down their face. I carefully hammered on his nameplate, his full name and dates, with nice etchings of him in his glory on the football field. I held his hand one last time, then bid him a final farewell as I tightened up the last screw.
Matt Taylor says to prevent more deaths, nothing short of a total reform of how suicide prevention services are delivered is required.
Booking appointments to suit a social service provider that's travelling from another town on their chosen day doesn't suit our people. We may need to go to another location for a medical appointment, or we may be involved in a workplace which requires us to be elsewhere. We're not always available. It would be nice to have those services available when we need them, not when we're told we can have them. Emotionally, I'm broken at the loss of my son. I just haven't let the pieces fall yet. For he was needed above at the homestead of love. Saddle up, saddle boy, ride for home.
Nathan Morris in Western Australia. The suicide rate amongst 15 to 24-year-olds is the highest it's been in a decade and the leading cause of death among young men. So what's driving so many young people to take their own lives? Katie Atchison is the CEO of Youth Action and Johnny Kieran is the lead clinician with Headspace. Thank you both so much for joining me today. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do.
So I'm the CEO of Youth Action. That's a peak body for young people and youth services in New South Wales. So I get to talk to young people and the people who work with them every day and find out what issues are going on for them, and then talk to government and decision makers and help them listen to young people directly.
I'm a senior clinician at Headspace Bondi Junction. I provide individual and group therapy to young people. There are 96 Headspace centres across the country, and Bondi Junction is one of them.
So we've just sort of heard and seen a really terrible story about suicide, and you both working with young people but in different kind of ways and in different spaces. Has youth suicide been something that has been seen to increase, and why is that happening?
Yeah, we've seen a really strong increase in the last 10 years of youth suicide, and that's particularly prevalent in the Aboriginal community, also with rural and regional young people, and in the queer community as well. So there's some serious, significant issues that are happening for young people in Australia, and the suicide rates are showing that we really need to kind of address this.
Certainly within rural and remote areas, there's not enough access to mental health services. Another big part of it is that with social media, young people are experiencing bullying and a lot of torment through that. There's also, I guess the notion that the exposure young people have to suicides around them can create a contagion effect that can also increase the chances of further suicides.
Youth unemployment in rural and regional areas is sometimes 5 times that of the general population. Also, education opportunities for these young people is really minimal, particularly the further remote you go. So young people need to see their value in the community and their place in the community, and often what happens is that for young people in Australia, and particularly in these rural communities I should say, is that we're not actually seeing these young people having a place, that they don't feel like they have any value, they don't feel like they have a place, and therefore suicide becomes more of an option. And it's not the option. This is a preventable crisis, and we need to sort of start intervening now, I think.
Going back to the story that we saw, one of the issues was kind of the fragmentation between different services. I mean, how does that issue present itself, and what are ways that we can kind of mitigate that?
I think what we saw in that story is that there were wait times for young people. Like when they're in crisis, you can't wait 5 days for somebody to come and help you. So what are the assets that we have in the community to deal with the issues immediately? And then how do we actually get those services that are able to come into or are in the communities to be able to reach a wider network? And there is a need for us to really kind of look at the money that we have and the services that we have and how can we better support these young people. But I think the story really clearly pointed out that we have some work to do.
Why do you think is in a country like Australia where there are so many opportunities that our young people are feeling like they don't belong? What is unique about Australia?
I would say the government space is a really interesting one. Our government doesn't talk about young people. We have an education department, but we don't have a ministry for youth. We don't talk about young people. We talk about pensioners and ageing population. But when was the last time you heard a politician say young people are important or valuable? You know, we don't hear it anymore. We don't have a national voice for young people. There isn't a minister for young people. And there is this space of saying if we keep on hiding young people in the background and we keep on ignoring them, what will happen? And what we're seeing is that young people don't feel valued, they don't feel like they're part of the community, and as a result, they'll isolate themselves or they'll separate themselves from the community, and that's the absolute opposite of what we need as a country.
There's a disconnect, you know. We're a country that is young, and you know, there's a lot of kind of growth here, yeah. I think there's also certainly coming from a place that was quite homogenous, you know, and celebrating the diversity here. I think, you know, young people are learning and developing ways to kind of communicate with different groups, you know, and we need to enhance that more. You know, it's about kind of learning from each other and the different cultures that we have in Australia. I think that does play a part, and this expectation of what it is to be an Australian, because you know that's really, you know, there are a lot of people in Australia who were not born here, myself included. You know, a lot of young people I meet feel that they don't belong in what it is to be normal Australian lifestyle. We need to review what it means to be this like notion of masculinity with young men, and you know what it is to be a woman as well, and be empowered in that sense of being able to talk about what's going on. Just to emphasise that need that if you see someone that you're worried about, and you know, to ask them, are you okay? You know, to kind of observe, ask, and act.
What does that acting look like?
So acting would be calling someone, you know. So someone says, so you know, a lot of young people will talk about thoughts to end their life, and we need to take that seriously. Some people can misinterpret that as attention seeking. I don't like the term attention seeking. You know, we all need to be attended to in some way, and there are sometimes we're not getting attended to. Now, it doesn't mean we don't take someone seriously.
Aboriginal young people are 4 times more likely than other young people to die from suicide. We're at a crisis point right now with this statistic and with young people dying way too early. But it's a preventable crisis. We just need the supports in place for those young people to have options, to have the ability to seek help from other places. So I think we need to start acting now. This isn't just another sad story. This is something that we can do something about today. So if you know somebody who is in a space where they're not doing great, then you need to seek help. And if you don't know how to do that, then call somebody who does, and keep on calling until you get to that point. But make sure that that young person knows they're not alone, that you value them, and that there is something that's coming in the future, because there is hope for the tomorrow. It might not look like it today, but there really is. So just stick with that person and don't give up.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.